Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 99 of the Whitey and Will Sports Show. Today is Sunday, January 21st, otherwise known as the day before the National Trail Conference boys basketball tournament is supposed to begin. Uh, of course, it wouldn't be an NTC tournament week without the weather playing hell with the schedule a little bit, which we'll get to that. I think we'll save the NTC boys preview for last here, but we got other things to talk about. We've got the National Trail Girls Tournament wrapped up last night. Got a chance to see the championship of that. Spent a little time down in Salem this week. I'll take a couple minutes to talk about the Salem tournament and Effingham stay down there, but then also the Effingham girls. Got a championship at their midwinter tournament, and there were lots of other games played this week. So we
Yeah,
got
T-Town girls won the Consi at
they
Highland.
did. And not only that, but they smoked a team that beat them
Yes,
pretty handily not that long ago. So
avenged a loss to
and
Bethalto.
and and also 1,000 point scorer for Effingham in that championship game
I
at
saw that.
Vandalia, which I had no idea that was coming, but we'll get to that. And of course, Mike, we pressed record on this episode without really deciding what we were going to start with as far as the
Yeah,
discussion.
good
But
point.
I think I'll move through the Salem tournament real quick and just kind of get that out of the way because at this point, like I don't want to ignore Effingham completely because that's not fair to the kids. But by the same token, I'm not gonna linger on games that they got beat. But I will say that they just we knew that was going to be a tough one. They played Centralia really
Yeah,
tough in the opener, but Centralia hit 16 3-pointers in that game, which broke a tournament record. 14 was the previous tournament record. And then they turned around and played Champaign Central on Saturday in the consolation semifinal. And Champaign Central hit 15 3-pointers, which would have been a record if not
yeah.
if not for
They late in the dollar short.
now the thing is they came about a little differently. Against Centralia, Effingham was playing a 2-3 zone, and Centralia was just kind of throwing over the top of it. And they shot nothing but threes almost in the first half of that game specifically. But um, they had they had open looks anytime they wanted them. And Central was more like, I saw Central at Thanksgiving. And
All
I
right.
thought, they're all right. I mean, they beat St. Anthony. But I was not like blown away by them. They could not miss a shot yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they shot like 65 something percent from the field. And so some of those makes were very impressive. And they just kind of blew Effingham's doors off in that game. It was kind of surprising that it went that way. So you get to for the Hearts, they're trying to get a win in the second game of the day at Salem against a Charleston team that decided after losing their opener that day to Carbondale that they would rest a couple of starters. The, uh, one of their kids has got a knee issue, so they went ahead and sat him, and then another one of their starters um, he'd had a situation earlier in the season where he'd had an injury around his mouth, okay? And then
Ooh,
during this game, the first game Saturday, he took a shot to the face again and he was pretty sore, I guess. So Langdon King sat and then the Bonstetter kid also sat for Charleston.
okay.
And Effingham hung tough, but Charleston pulled away, beat him by 14. So the Hearts go down to Salem. They lost three. They're still stuck on 2 wins this year. It's just um they I, like I said to Matt during the broadcast at one point, they've got a lot of kids that they'll do part of a right thing and then the finish just isn't there. But that's kids who who just didn't get the chance to play JV basketball playing
Right. And that's the
basketball.
thing they've lost with no, I mean, you had one senior,
Mhm.
Fox kid, and he had to have surgery. So you're pretty limited. And
Yeah.
you're right. They have a group of kids who would be getting development this year at the JV level, having to play a varsity schedule. And, it's,
You you
you know, you play Centralia, you play Mount Zion twice, you're facing some pretty good
oh
competition
yeah.
throughout the season.
But you have to keep teams like that on your schedule because it's not always going to be like this and it's not usually like this. And I mean, you get into a 3A regional, you're
Right.
you're going to play teams like Champaign Central pretty quick,
Yeah. Well, and
So,
that's the thing, being 3A. I mean, that's one of the things, only being 3A. Uh, we try to get them in our Christmas tournament, and I think Coach Flanagan's got a lot of ties in that area down there, so I'm sure that's part of the reason they stay down there. But I just think it would make more
yeah.
sense to
Well,
bang against some pretty top competition. But
especially for only because their conference doesn't give them any 3A competition. So,
no, and they're ranked. I saw they were in. I think they cracked the top 25. They're like got two, I had three
yeah.
losses maybe.
I mean, you're talking about a big chunk of their schedule that's predetermined for them between their league games and their conference
Exactly,
tournament, where they are not
exactly.
playing anybody that they're going to, you know, not nobody that they're going to see once regionals roll around. And so
Right.
you would think that it would behoove them to try and get into something a little more challenging, during one of the holiday tournaments. But listen, I'm also not gonna tell Rob Flanagan what is best for his program. He's obviously
Oh
had
yeah.
some success,
He's
a
gonna be a
little,
Hall of
a
Fame.
little bit, a little
He's gonna
bit.
be a Hall of Fame
Yeah.
coach. So
So,
no, it's something, like I said, we'd love to have him, but it is what it is.
yeah. Well, keep working
Um,
on it because it'd be that if that ever worked out more often than not, it'd be a good addition. And I kind of had hopes, when there was talk of districts happening for football,
right,
that it would happen. And then you'd have these teams like only schools that got out of the Apollo strictly for football reasons that then would all of a sudden become a great fit again.
right. Well, you would create some interesting conferences because you're not beholden to football. But
Right.
unfortunately,
I
and the
guess a lot of
IHSA
people
has
don't see
made
it that
some
way.
decisions without principals vote before, major decisions. So
Yep.
they're
Yeah.
kind of. I had an AD tell me they're just the IHSA could pull the trigger and make a decision tomorrow morning, make the announcement. But it's the smaller schools in the north that don't want to do it, and that's why you know,
hmm
why it is what it is. All right, let's move on.
Yeah,
So,
happier times for Effingham High School happened over in Vandalia as the Lady Hearts ran the table at that midwinter tournament, and they beat Greenville 40-29 in the championship game yesterday, which that one was even closer than that most of the way, according to the text that I was getting from Mr. Woltman throughout the competition. But then they did pull it out. They got their 20th win of the season in the process. And Bella Austin, the junior transfer from Vandalia on her home court, well, not her home court anymore, but her former home court, crossed over the 1,000-point plateau during that
right.
game. So she must have scored. I mean, just looking at my numbers, she scored well over 800 points in her first two seasons at Vandalia because she was at like 165 going into that game, and I don't have totals from a lot of the Saturday games. There haven't been box scores out there yet for me to look at, but
That's the second Effingham player that I know of who scored their 1,000th point coming from another school. Abby Weiss did the same thing a couple of years ago.
yeah. Um, you know, Bella has had to kind of obviously go from being the guy with Vandalia to having to be one of many options at Effingham, but
Being a piece of the team.
yeah, but I think I can't see any evidence that she's done anything but embrace that. Um,
Oh, I would think so. I mean, I would embrace the fact you have 20 wins.
yeah,
What I would
winning is fun,
embrace.
isn't it? It's they've been a good team. By the way, Effingham number 10 in the last Class 3A Associated Press poll, but not to take anything away from Jeff and the girls, and that's not what I'm gonna go into this for, but Mount Zion got votes, and then Taylorville got fewer votes than Mount Zion. Now,
Yeah,
here's the problem with that. Effingham's lost twice to Taylorville this year.
Taylorville.
Uh, and so that's why anytime someone wants to talk to me too much about what somebody's ranking is in the AP poll, I say, well, that's nice. It's good recognition. I'm glad they're getting their name out there, but these people voting, and I don't even know, there's not very many people voting, first of all. And second of all, some of them very clearly are not doing any sort of research, and I don't know what I guess they're just looking at
Girls need an Aaron Britt type to step forward because
you
his
know,
poll's pretty good.
that thought crossed my mind before.
Would we have to interview you?
Um, man, the to me it's just the amount of time. Like I put a
Well,
I put a pretty
it's very
serious
time
amount of
consuming.
time just in keeping track of like,
I
couple
know.
dozen teams, not even that many, 18
Yeah.
teams maybe. I can't imagine, and he's got such a great network set up already, but
Hmm.
it would be nice if something like that existed because the process is obviously not very scientific. I mean,
Well, you don't see enough people play in person either. That would
that's
be
the
your
thing.
issue.
I mean, although it is, I will say that it now more than ever, it's more possible to at least find the
Sure, but
video.
right, you can see video and do stuff like that, but yeah, it's
But I will say also that watching a replay of a game on an NFHS is not the same as being
no,
there.
it's not desirable.
No, there's a lot of things you can't get a feel for on your computer screen.
And most times the score's backwards. So
It is a problem sometimes. But listen, Effingham's girls, they like I said, 20 wins for them. What are they? They're 20-4. They get back to playing some conference games this week. They go to Mattoon Thursday, and they go to Muhammad on Saturday. So a couple of road trips is sandwiched around, of course, the fact that they have T-Town coming in on Friday. So um, that's that's 3 days. That's 3 games in 3 days. Now
right,
Muhammad is not what they were the last couple of years. They haven't won a conference game yet. Um, but still, that's a long way to go to play on a Saturday, and that's always weird, right? Like kids don't always respond great to that. And you're
right,
you're coming off of having to play Mattoon and T-Town, who are both, obviously challenging opponents. And I heard that T-Town Effingham game might be on the radio too, and somebody might be working it. Somebody I know, I'm not
my
sure.
first game of the year, Whitey. I'm not sure I know what I'm doing, but
Well, between you and Greg, you guys will get it figured out. We got Greg warmed up last night at Beecher City at the NTC Girls Championship.
oh, did
So
he do the work with who? You and
yeah,
Greg?
yeah, he did. We just wanted um basically, we didn't know whether Effingham's boys were going to play at 3 or 4:30 at Salem for
Right,
sure. And so if it was 4:30, then Mason Robinson was going to pick up that second game. He was going to come over from Kaskaskia College and do that game, and I was going
right,
to head to Beecher City. But we didn't want to tell Greg that he had to be on standby, and maybe
right,
not do a game. So Matt said, "Do you want to do it or do you want me to do it?" And I was like, "Well, I'm pretty invested in the NTC girls conference, and
right,
so I'd like to be there for it." And he was gracious enough to let me call that one. So that's how that all worked out. But yeah, you and Greg, it'll be good. And T Town's girls, we can
be a
segue
good ball
right
game.
to that because they got the consolation championship at Highland,
I
and
mean,
that's
so that you go 3-1 and you get the constant championship. That's you go
that's
three
doing
and one
something.
in Highland tournament. That's awesome.
Yeah, they lost their opener to Taylorville, which again, Taylorville's awfully good. And then they turn around, they beat Belleville East rather handily, beat them by 26 points. They beat Waterloo by 19. And so then you get a rematch with Civic Memorial in the Consolation Championship, and that's a rematch from a game that they played just scrolling. They played that game
After Christmas, wasn't it?
January 8th. So you're talking about less than 2 weeks after Bethalto beat you 43-26. Okay. And that's 26 points, I mean, that's tough, right? Like that's a rough day at the office. They turn
Right,
around and beat Bethalto 59-46 for that consolation championship. So that's a nice little turnaround for Lori and the girls. They got their 16th win against 7 losses there, and again, like you said, going 3-1 at Highland is impressive no matter what the place that you get
right.
is, what number it is. It's
Again, best girls tournament in the state.
and they I haven't been over there in a while, obviously, but I used to try and make my way down there at least one day when I was working at the newspaper because it's a nice big gym. There's always a lot of people there, and
Yep, yep.
you can sit and just watch two or three games and see, just outstanding competition. And it's been that way for years and years and years. So good job to the Lady Shoes. And of course, in addition to the game with Effingham, they got a couple other real tough ones this week. Tuesday night they got Altamont coming in.
I'm big about it. Senior night at T-Town, I believe.
And Altamont's going to be stinging a little bit because,
Yeah,
spoiler alert, they did not win the NTC Girls Championship last night. Uh, but they had won 19 games in a row prior to that. And they're a top, again, uh, a top 10 team in the state, top five team in the state, according to the last poll, after they had beaten Tuscola uh, prior to the tournament beginning. So they're obviously very good, and they've got a terrific standout player who will be a good challenge for them. Um, and then they got Effingham, and then they got Breeze Central coming in on Saturday.
Bruce
And
Central's, I think, ranked number one in 2A.
yeah, let me see real quick what
They were, boys and girls were both number one, I think, a week ago.
yeah, Breeze Central girls 20-3 on the year. Um, they were at the Highland Tournament as well. They played in the championship and lost to Alton 57-46, but Alton is in the middle of a real good run themselves.
Right. They're one of the
T-Town
top three
girls,
or 4A schools in the state.
yeah, T-Town girls had to play them last year down at Highland and gave them a run for their money, as I recall. Gave
Yep.
them a pretty good game. So uh, that's the week for T-Town. So their girls they've got a big challenging week coming up for them, and T-Town's boys. Also have a pretty big challenge coming up. We'll get to what they did this week. They played yesterday. That was their only game this week, but they
Beat
got to go
St.
to Mount
Joe.
Zion. They got to go to Mount Zion on Tuesday. And Mount Zion, speaking of teams that are stinging from their first loss in quite some time, they played Metamora earlier.
First loss of the season.
Yeah, yep.
Now, Mount Zion Unity played yesterday, Whitey. I did not see a score.
Mount Zion thumped them.
Did they?
Yeah, it was
There was probably a little red ass there.
62-38. And that's a
Yeah.
pretty good Unity team. We've seen them. Okay.
Yep.
That's a pretty good Unity team, and they didn't have much trouble with them. So they do that, and then they got Mater Day coming in on Friday. St. Anthony put a running clock on Mater Day. I'm not going to predict that T-Town does anything like that, but I think the Shoes ought to be able to win that one. But first things first, that Mount Zion game is going to be a good test for Chet and the boys to see where they're at.
Yep.
It's one of those where I don't think you can be disappointed if you get beat, but you can be disappointed if you do not, if you don't play something approaching your best in that game.
So two of the 4 undefeated teams left in the state both lost this week. Mount Zion and then Mount Zion turned around and beat Colonials.
And then, I mean, it hadn't been that long since Centralia had been among the
Yeah,
undefeated.
Centralia's off. So I think is it maybe Wabons and Valley's the only one still unbeaten?
I
I don't
don't
know.
even I do not know that for a certainty, but I do know that T-Town beat Prairie Central by 13 yesterday, 62-49. So after that big Tuscola game a week ago, they got a straight week off and then came back and got a win to improve to 13-6, which 13-6, right? Like you just look at the record and you're like, well, T-Town's so, but that's those are
Yeah,
six losses those are six tough losses. So
right.
there's not a bad team in that bunch and not a really bad loss in there, I don't think.
No.
So all right. We'll get to the NTC boys, but and real quick couple of shout outs. I meant to do this at the very top of the show, Mike. But when I was at Salem, uh, between games, a Charleston fan comes walking up to me and says, "Hey, I just wanted you to know that I drive from Charleston to Shelbyville for work, and every Monday I put on your show and listen to you and Mike on the way to work." Uh, guy's name is Charlie.
Hey, Carson, is he wearing an ankle bracelet?
I said, so you're the one. No, Charlie Forster is the name. Really nice guy. We talked for quite a while, as it turns out, and you know, I think a lot of similar thoughts about high school sports and coaching kids and
Good.
but really good conversation there. Also, talked to the guy who does the color for Charleston's basketball broadcast, Randy Harpster.
Yeah.
We had a nice conversation. He
Yeah.
was very complimentary of the work that I've done on the radio with Matt this year, and of course,
Good.
once we got to talking, he was talking about having coached against Rod Wheatop, and I said, "Well, if you coached against Rod, then you probably coached against my father-in-law, Kenny Miller, too." And he's like, "Oh yeah, Kenny's a funny guy," which that's Kenny's a little bit fiery as a coach sometimes, so I never know
Yeah.
exactly what the reaction is going to be whenever I
Yeah.
bring his name up, but got a good one there. And then also, we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about this, but Cumberland's girls, I wanted to give Sammy a quick shout out because they got fifth place in their conference tournament. Had a nice win yesterday over a team that thumped them earlier in the year, but they got a win. So that's always, I just think it's nice when a team can turn, like if you
Right.
get beat by
Avenge the
20,
loss.
if you get beat by 20 plus by somebody, it's like, and then turn around and beat them, like that's got to be one of the better feelings that you can have, I think.
Right.
So just quick shout outs, but the NTC girls tournament wrapped up yesterday, and St. Anthony won the title game over Altamont 69-60, and it was a good battle. St. Anthony led most of the game. They Altamont went up by 6 early in the contest. In the first quarter, they had as much as a 6 point lead, but by the end of it, they were down 1. And St. Anthony grew that lead up to as many as 9 in the second quarter, only for Altamont to, at a certain point in the third quarter, get back out front. But then St. Anthony answered almost immediately. And they were up by 10 at certain points in the fourth quarter, and they held on to win. But it was a good battle. And of course, if you remember when Altamont won their regular season game back earlier in the year, St. Anthony was without Nancy Ruhal.
Right.
And Nancy scored 26 points last night. She and Stacy Vonderheide, friend of the show, Stacy
Friend
Vonderheide,
of the show, tournament MVP, friend of the
tournament
show,
MVP,
Stacy Wonder.
Stacy Vonderheide. They both scored 26. So, 52 of the 69 points there belong to those two. But
Oh, before you, um, Effingham at Vandalia, I saw, I think where Sydney Donaldson was MVP of that tournament.
was that right?
I
Okay.
saw that.
I hadn't seen the full all tournament team there.
Right. That's all I saw. I don't know who's on the all tournament team. I just saw where she, so we're probably uh not listing another girl from Effingham, but I didn't see that information.
Yeah, I mean, if Effingham won it, you would think they've got at least somebody else on there. I mean,
You would
that's
think so.
generally how it,
Greenville had two girls.
yeah, that would make sense then. But yeah, again, like that game, and afterwards, talked to both coaches, of course, and Craig Carr, the Altamont coach, another friend of the show, by the way. He he kind of he kind of took responsibility. He felt like they didn't exploit some early foul trouble for St. Anthony enough.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get it down. They settled for jumpers and didn't try to get it down to the post enough. And that was one of the fun battles in that game. If you look at the box score, you won't see big point totals next to Addie Nuxall or Kaylee Lurkins' names, but
But they went at it.
they were getting after it down there. It was fun to watch. And I think that Altamont probably had more opportunities to dump it down there to Kaylee. I think she was doing a good job of establishing position. But that's kind of what Altamont's been this year. They hit a lot of 3 pointers. They're not real
Right.
big,
Right.
besides the Lurkins girl, and so they will. And it's been, obviously they've had a ton of success that way. But I think St. Anthony's athleticism overall won out in that game because Vonderheide and Ruhal can both take it to the rim and absorb a little bit of contact and get it to go in off. I mean, I don't know how many times Stacy would just drive in from the elbow and kind of not go right through somebody, but
Right.
kind of brush past them and just put it high off the glass and get it to go. Just I think the way when I talked to Aaron Rios, the St. Anthony coach after the game, a lot of dirty points. She just gets you a lot of dirty points. Like
Just scores.
she's not Grace Nelson. She doesn't score with finesse, okay?
Right.
It's not pretty to watch. Like no one's going to be like, "Wow, that's just a pure basketball player," but they're going to say there's an athlete. There's somebody who can get in
Last
there.
person I knew that got a lot of, as you say, dirty points, Whitey, and I read his interview in Steve Raymond's article on P-Town was Brent Nieberg. He didn't score much outside of 8 feet that
Yeah.
year, and he
Yeah,
scored a ton of points.
I mean, Stacy scored 26 points last night. I don't recall her ever like I don't know that she shot a three-pointer. And she just, I mean, she can,
Right. Oh
but
yeah.
that's not what they were doing last night. Ruhal did hit some three-pointers, and quite frankly, Nancy Ruhal probably down the stretch hit most of the really big shots for St. Anthony. Some big ones to keep Altamont at an arm's length, and then toward the end of the game, Altamont started fouling, and that fouling strategy it's harder to make it work for you now that it's two shots in the
Right.
bucket.
It's easier to shoot two than a one on
But
one.
but it was still working because St. Anthony, for a stretch in the early part of that fourth quarter, or the midpoint of the fourth quarter, was not hitting both free throws. They were either going 1 for 2 or 0 for 2, and
Yeah.
allowing Altamont with Peyton Osteen and the Grunlow girl, Brianna Grunlow, they both hit some big 3-pointers to help close the gap during that fouling strategy. Uh, because Nelson was being taken away, I should say.
Right.
St. Anthony was defending her well and making somebody else beat them, but for a stretch, somebody else was beating them. But then Ruhal, they started getting it into Nancy's hands, and she made all the free throws. She she did everything she needed to do. I mean, that's a sophomore who did not buckle under the pressure. And I think even though she's played a ton of basketball, that's a big moment in a packed gym. Uh, that NTC tournament championship game over there at Beecher City, like I mean, there's always a bunch of people there. It's a
Well,
great,
and I
great
saw both Altamont and St. Anthony had, I believe, donors step forward and covered the cost of admission for
yeah.
students,
That's
which
Aaron.
was cool. I saw a little snippet video, and I don't know if it's the Altamont kids or St. Anthony kids, but there's a lot of them.
Altamont's student section was definitely probably larger and definitely more vocal. But they've done that for a while. They've
Right.
always had a pretty good group of kids that supports the girls' teams. I think I I, I small aside, but every school you go to, you look at the student section at a boys game and you see all the girls basketball players there. And
Yes.
you don't see the inverse of that at the girls games. And I wish that was more common, but it's not.
Well, St. Anthony boys played yesterday too.
Well, no, I get it. I get it. I'm not picking that one example. I'm saying that's just as a general rule, I kind of see it that way. Um, but yeah, there was a great crowd. They do a great job of Beecher City putting that thing on. Carolyn Winnie took good care of us. She's she runs a tight ship when she's at the front of a tournament. I don't know who all was involved in running it, but I know she's the one I talked to when I needed to know anything. So,
It's a good resource.
but yeah, it just Saint Anthony kept its composure enough. Okay, they like I said, there was a stretch where they were missing their free throws a little bit, and you thought Altamont and Nelson did have a pretty good look at a three-pointer with I don't know, maybe 12 seconds left on the
When
clock
it
that
cut
would
it
have
to
made it
two.
a 2-point game. But didn't hit it. She hit a lot of those. I don't know how many wing threes she hit from 4 or 5 feet beyond the arc, but that's tough to defend. You can't. It's if you step out on her, she can beat you that way, and if you give her room, then she can hit that shot. And there's just not
Right.
a lot of other kids around here who can do it. But you know, shout out to both teams. They played a great game, and it's not going to surprise me to see either one of those groups make a
Make a
nice
deep
deep
run. Yep.
run. Yeah, is and also something I mentioned to Greg is that both of those programs in recent years have kind of, it's they've gotten to that championship game and it hasn't happened for them. 2 years ago, Altamont got in it and lost in double overtime to Neoga when I think they were probably, I think I remember them being seated higher than Neoga. And then, last year, St. Anthony lost it in overtime to Neoga after having I mean, they took Neoga apart in their regular season game
Right.
last year. And
Yeah.
then
So number one seed hasn't won, and this was the third year in a row.
yeah, it's not always I guess it's not always best to go in there the favorite, huh?
Nope.
But it was a good game. Like I said, the atmosphere was great. Just running it down real quickly, the other games yesterday. In the third place game, Brownstown St. Elmo beat Diedrich. That was the 3 seed beating the 5 seed. 62-38. It was a pretty I saw most of that, and it was just sort of a methodical win for Brownstown. They're a really solid team too, like
Yeah.
there's been other years where a team of that caliber would win that tournament pretty handily, and they're just kind of unlucky to have the group they do right now. But they got a lot they've got a pretty special player that's only a freshman, so you haven't heard the last of her. And I'll get to that all tournament team in a minute so we know exactly who
Yeah.
I'm talking about. But then in the fifth place game, six-seeded Cowden Herrick Beecher City beat number 4 Neoga 61-43, which surprises me a little that it was that wide of a margin. Heard that CHBC was out to about a 10-point lead in the first quarter, so Neoga just was having to play from behind the whole way and couldn't get it done. And then Windsor Stew Straws, the 7 seed, beat number 8 South Central 57-41 in the seventh place game. So, again, even after that tournament's over with, 7 of the 9 teams still have an overall winning record. South Central dipped below 500 with a couple of losses, but despite that, it's my point remains that it's a great small school girls conference. They had a nice
Yeah.
tournament. It didn't go chalk, which sometimes you see like, the seedings are just how it's going to turn out because you just sort of already it's a foregone conclusion, and you did not have that yesterday, which is good. And I don't know, just I really like where that girls conference is at now. Um, as far as the all tournament team, 12 people. Peyton Osteen from Altamont got on there. Ella Kinkler from Windsor Stew Straws got on there. Maya Ballard from North Clay. Tegan Webster from South Central. Nancy Ruhal from St. Anthony. Deanna Hazel. Let me say that again. Deanna Hazlett from Brownstown St. Elmo. That's the freshman I was talking about.
Okay.
Um, and by the way, Kinkler, Ballard, Webster, those are all 1,000-point scorers in their careers. And Miley Britton from Dieter got on there. Unless something really bad happens with her, if she hasn't done it already, she will this year, I would think. Bryn Richards from Neoga got on there. Macy Rodman from CHBC. Another 1,000-point scorer, Lexi Seabaugh from Brownstown St. Elmo, got on there. And then, of course, Grace Nelson, 2,000-point scorer, probably
Right.
2,500 by the time this season's done. And then, of course, Stacy Vonderhyde, your MVP, and yet another 1,000-point scorer. She's the tournament MVP, well deserved. And like I told Greg during that broadcast last night, I mean, if you're one of the 12 best players in that conference tournament, then you've really done something. And that's a really good group of players. I mean, I'd put that group up against any 12 that any other 1A girls conference could
Oh
muster.
yeah, I agree.
So yeah, it's they've had 3 really good championship games in a row down there at Beecher City, and it's been a lot of fun to be involved with it. I'd like to get a chance to do more than just the championship game, but obviously it's there's a lot of other things to have to be thought about. But one thing that is certain is that will be at all 14 of the boys NTC tournament games this week, which, obviously the station 97.9 is done for a long time now, going back to
Yep.
the days of the great Larry Wilson.
Who's actually coming over to eat supper with us, but
Is that
may
right?
he may peek his head over my shoulder here, make a cameo when he gets here.
So that's supposed to start tomorrow.
Supposed to.
The weather's not looking great for tomorrow.
When you use the word ice, that's snow's one thing, ice is another.
Mhm.
So I'm interested to see when it actually gets here. If sometimes superintendents will call off school when something's coming and they're saying, yes, you're going to get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Sometimes, the old adage, oh, I believe it when I see it. Well, sometimes, okay, now how are you going to get all these kids home when the roads are a sheet of ice? So
yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, remember
I would
last
imagine every super in the county is waiting for Andy Johnson to go out in the morning and drive around because they
well,
usually
remember
follow suit.
last year, they knew weather was coming in. Remember this? There was on Tuesday of NTC week.
Didn't happen either.
I don't remember that it got as bad as they thought, but they thought it was going to. And so on that Tuesday, rather than rather than play two quarterfinals on Tuesday and two on Wednesday, they played four quarterfinal games all on that Tuesday afternoon and evening.
Right.
And it was, listen, like
I
I
heard people enjoyed that.
I thought it was awesome. Like I was there for the whole shebang, and
Or
I
you
thought
played all quarterfinals on, oh, you moved them all to Tuesday. They
they
thought it
moved
was
them all to
counting Monday.
Tuesday because they thought the weather was going to come in on Wednesday. So
Oh, okay. That's
it was a
right. That's right.
preventative measure
Yeah.
that didn't end up. I don't remember whether it ended up being necessary or not, but they did it, and it was cool.
Right.
Like you got to see all. I mean, 8 of the 9 teams in one
Right.
day,
Yeah.
in one trip over there. So I thought that was neat. I mean, it's from a scheduling standpoint for all the schools and stuff, and for getting fans there for some of those early games, especially. Like
Yeah.
it's not ideal. I'm guessing that it probably didn't help with their gate any, but
But yeah, that's better than playing on a crappy night. No one shows up.
right, yeah. Or, having to scramble to figure out how you're going to do things later in the week.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it's supposed all we can do is operate under the assumption that it goes according to schedule and go from there. Tomorrow is only supposed to be the play-in game, one game tomorrow. CHBC and Neoga, which is the 8 and 9 seeds. Uh, CHBC's they've won 9 games this year. Neoga's won 5. Been kind of a tough year for Andrew Snow and the boys,
So
but
the 8-9 playing game, and then number 8 turns around and plays Tuesday.
if 8 wins, yeah, the winner of that
Yeah,
game plays.
that could create some intrigue how that's done, Whitey.
Yeah, the winner of that game is supposed to play St. Anthony in the first game on Tuesday. St. Anthony's number 1 seed.
Yep.
And then the other quarterfinal on Tuesday is supposed to be number 4 St. Elmo Brownstown against number 5 North Clay. Then Wednesday, you have openers for the other 4 teams. Number 2 Altamont against number 7 Windsor Stews Draws, followed by number 3 Diederich and number 6 South Central. And then, of course, from there it goes. You're supposed to have 3 games on Thursday. Um, you got a consolation quarterfinal because the loser of that play-in game will play the loser of the 2-7 game on the
Right.
consolation side of the bracket, and then the loser of the other 2 quarterfinals, the game between St. Anthony and whoever, uh, will play the loser of St. Elmo Brownstown and North Clay on Thursday, and then they have a championship semifinal as well. Again, that's between the winners of those other 2 games. Most likely St. Anthony, of course, and then either St. Elmo Brownstown or North Clay. But
Right.
looking at how things have gone, probably St. Elmo Brownstown, because you kind of look at the way things are going, and Josh thinks a good coach, good guy. We like Josh, but
Friend of the show.
it's going to take a pretty big upset for him to beat St. Elmo Brownstown. I think they're having a pretty good year. They're up to 17 wins already, and probably could have made their case for a 3 seed in this thing as well, or even a 2 seed. I mean, they had St. Anthony down, at halftime when they played them. Uh, but Altamont's undefeated in conference play, and at the end of the day, St. Elmo Brownstown has a loss. Diedrich has 2 losses, but
Yeah.
the two top teams. So
Right.
you could have gone a lot of different ways with those 2, 3, 4 spots.
All right, but and St. Elmo Brownstown is not lost in the conference yet, but they also haven't played Altamont or
Well, they have
St.
lost in
Anthony.
the conference. They lost to St. Anthony, but
Oh, okay. They have one loss. Okay.
yeah, and Diedrich's lost to St. Anthony and Altamont. So those aren't bad losses, but I mean, I think the thing is that you look at is the coaches who voted decided that even though Diedrich's conference record is worse and their overall record is worse, that they just think that Diedrich's the slightly better team, and that's I mean, listen,
It happens.
they're not looking at just the results, right? They're not just looking at because team schedules are not created equal either.
No, they are not.
And so St. Elmo Brownstown has they've got a chance to get another look at St. Anthony if they can get that first win and St. Anthony takes care of business. But it is a big difference between playing St. Anthony in the semifinals and playing either Altamont or St. Elmo Brownstown. I think. I mean, I think it's just pretty clearly St. Anthony's the favorite here, and it's not to say they can't lose, but they're the number one team in 1A. Okay, like of course they're the favorite. So
Right.
I didn't even mention that St. Anthony this week. We
Yeah,
didn't
I
really
was
talk
waiting until
about.
we were done.
Yeah, they had a good week. I mean, they beat Windsor Stew Straws. They beat Flora. They beat Windsor Stew Straws, but most importantly, they beat St. Joseph Ogden on Saturday.
Right.
Yesterday,
I
beat
said T-Town beat St. Joe Ogden. It was St. Anthony that beat St. Joe Ogden.
Yeah, St. Anthony beat St. Joe Ogden, and St. Joe Ogden's. Let's see, in Aaron Britton's latest 2A, they were 15th. So, that's a quality win for St. Anthony. They're going to obviously stay on top of Aaron's rankings this week.
Right.
Um, Tuscola lost again, by the way. They
Who
got
beat him
beat.
this time?
Clinton. Clinton beat them.
Really? That's all.
Yeah,
What's his face? Who used to be at Warrensburg Latham?
you got me.
I can't remember the coach's name now.
Clinton's 20-1 though. Okay, they're
Yeah.
number 11 in 2A according to Aaron Britton. So, and they'll probably imagine they'll bump up a little bit after that. So,
Yeah.
although I don't know, I don't know enough about 2A to say for certain. Yeah. So, just looking at other NTC games from last week real quick. I mean, Diedrich beat Effingham. That's I'm sure that's Effingham's down like we've talked about, but and I didn't even talk about that when I talked about Effingham before, but
Yeah.
they went into that was actually a fairly close game for a while, but Diedrich pulled away late. Diedrich's got one of those teams. I mean, it's a lot of years that that game just for size of school difference that would just be a tough one for Diedrich to ever win. But it's kind of a combination of Effingham being down and then Diedrich having
Right.
a senior laden talented team. And by the way, they had a player go over 1,000 points recently.
Gephardt did, wasn't it? Or
Well,
Westendorf?
Gephardt's already done it, but then Westendorf
Okay.
did it too. Lucas Westendorf also
Okay.
crossed that one over. So yeah, I didn't mean to shortchange the NTC as far as what happened this last week, but you get so wrapped up in thinking about what's going to happen this week.
You're thinking we have an outside chance of being under an hour on our show, is what you're thinking.
Well, we're getting there. We're almost
I
done.
know. I know.
But now I'm kind of thinking I'm just going to ramble for a while just to.
Well, that's always possible.
So anyway, I mean, but I think we pretty much covered it, right? Like I think it'll be a good tournament in the sense that while St. Anthony is the clear favorite, I think there's kind of a pick 'em on the 2, 3, and 4. I could see those teams doing any
Yeah.
number of things. And then
Well,
really
and it is what it is.
and even though there's a pretty I mean, I think there's a fairly I think there's obviously a little drop off 5 and under, but I think that there's still good games to be had in that grouping too, right? Because they're going to play pretty evenly with each other, and there's still good basketball to be seen there. So it it'll be a fun week. It'll be a fun week, and I think you could get yourself some pretty good Saturday matchups. But somebody's gonna have to play pretty well to unseat St. Anthony as the favorite there, and we'll have
Right.
to wait and see. You know, Cody's boys are playing real well. I went and saw them at Windsor Stew Straws at Windsor to be specific on Friday, and Windsor Stew Straws hung with them for a quarter. Had to go on an 8-0 run at the end of the first quarter to tie it, but then still end up losing by 23. It's just that's just what St. Anthony does to you. They'll wear you down. It's hard to play with them for 32 minutes. And speaking of 1,000 point scorers, since I've already done that a lot tonight, I think Brock Fearday ought to be getting pretty close. I don't know exactly
He's
where he's
probably in the
at,
neighborhood.
but I think there's a pretty good chance he could do it this week, which would be kind of special for him
Yeah.
to do that during the
Hey,
NTC.
I know you're worried, but Buffalo's just gone up 3-0.
I was on pins and needles.
I'm sure you were. And
I
the
was
Lions did win, so they had a late pick. I read someone that said that'd be a good game, but Baker Mayfield would make a mistake late. And he was down 8. They had to go down and get 2, but yeah, he got picked. So
Um, you know, people were trying to compare Jordan Love to Brett Favre because of that interception he threw at the end of that game, but I don't know. I don't know
well,
if
it was that type of ill-advised throw. I mean, but
it
you're
was a,
trying to win. I understand, but
it was an ill-advised throw, but also I think Jordan Love's going to be fine. Like,
yeah,
he may never be great, but like he's going to be better than any quarterback I've seen on the Bears, in pretty much my entire life. So,
you had
you
to get
know,
our Bears reference in.
well, I mean, I have to think about the Packers a lot just by virtue of being a Bears fan. So, um, I, it's just frustrating that they seem to have already. I thought, well, maybe they'll finally, for once in my memory, my living memory, not have you know, a top 10 quarterback in the league. And I'm not sure that's the case. I think they may have their next guy. So that's a little
Yeah,
disheartening.
I
But
understand. I
I'm
understand.
used to it. I'm also used to it. So that's okay. That's why the Braves counter it out. The Braves are really good. And spring training is right around the corner, Mike.
I know it is.
And Lance Lynn is not in our rotation, so I feel pretty good about things.
Well, I understand that completely.
Lance Lynn back with the Cardinals. That's a fun one.
And Matt Carpenter.
Yes, I saw that.
Well,
Because
I did read a brief interview with him where he said his role, he is looking forward to being that left-handed bat off the bench and providing leadership to the young guys. So there's not this guys about, hey, we're going to set
yeah,
youngsters and give him, 400 at bats because we
well,
all want to stand up and clap for him.
the last time that Matt Carpenter was a decent major league player with the Yankees, that's what he was. He was a left-handed bat. Like they
Right.
played him, they gave him the at-bats in the favorable situations, and he did okay.
He's doing
So
pretty good until he got hurt.
yeah, so there's I don't think that was should have been enough for the Padres to say, hey, we want to give this guy a 2-year contract, but
No, 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 no. But
but
that's fine. He's and I'm okay with that. 1 year.
yeah.
Um,
Well, and they don't have to pay him anything because I mean he's
Padres are still paying him, or the
yeah
Yankees, whoever it is.
so remember he got traded to the Braves. Remember the Braves took his salary on
Oh, that's right.
to get a left-handed reliever. So
That's right.
technically the Braves will be paying I think most of his salary this year, but then
Well, that's good.
they turn around DFA'd him because they didn't actually want him. They wanted the other guy. That was just
Huh?
one of those we'll eat your
Yeah, we'll give
contract.
you A, but you got to take B.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's whatever. I hope that he ends up having to play every day for the Cardinals. That'd be fun, but only for me, not for you.
No.
Hey, we got 2 minutes to go for an hour, so you want to
Let's
just
wrap it. Let's say
you
we
want
were
to-
under 2 an hour.
well, That's no fun, but we'll do it. We'll obviously have I think it's kind of fitting that we'll be wrapping up the NTC tournament for our 100th episode next week.
Yeah, that is. That
Uh,
is.
and we
I
might
like
have
that.
to, this is just off the top of my head, but maybe we could talk friend of the show, Matt Robinson, into talking that tournament over with us.
Yeah, that'd be good.
He and I will have seen all those
You're
games.
going to see him all week. Will he want to be around you again?
He and I have gotten our fair share of each other this year, but so far it feels like it's still going pretty well.
Plus,
So,
I don't think he has internet, so that means he'll probably come into town here.
hey, if you can get him to do it, that'd be awesome.
Well, you talk to him because you'll see him every day.
I'll do that. I'll do that. I could even set him up with another laptop that has Zoom on it. And
Uh-oh.
what's up?
Uh-oh. All right.
I'm just saying, like if we got him someplace where he had a stable internet connection, we
Well, that's
because I
we'll
will
see.
say that sometimes when it's you and another person sitting in front of your computer, like every once in a while, if they're not looking right at the if they're not sitting right in front, like it doesn't.
So if they have their head turned like this, looking
Yeah.
at the ball game, that's distracting.
Yeah. So like well, but also like sometimes hard to hear, I guess
I
is the
understand.
is the other thing. But we'll see. Or he can call in. He's called in before, you know.
Yeah,
We like to see it's hard, it's better to talk to someone when you can see their face though. So
sure.
we'll figure out how to make that work. That's good brainstorming there. And now he's on the spot because he, he's
Yeah, he knows we want him, so we'll probably have to pay him now.
well, I'll buy him dinner at the hospitality room one night
There
this
you go.
or maybe at Joe's because the tradition is to go to Joe's and eat before the championship game
There you go.
on Saturday. So maybe I'll
Hey,
spring for that
just so
one.
you know, it's the first picture I've seen of Taylor Swift at the games.
I saw some video of her walking into the stadium. Let me tell you something. I don't even like it's just funny how mad it makes.
Careful, Whitey, you'll get my daughter's Irish up here.
No.
All right.
I am not anti Taylor Swift. I think it's very
Okay.
funny how mad it makes some people that she is that the league has tied itself to her. But like they're business people and she's the most famous pop star in the world. So
Yep.
like it's of course they're going to. Like it's a huge amount of
It's a
money that they're probably
it's a cash flow opportunity.
absolutely. You know, find something, find some real problems in life. If Taylor
Complain
Swift
about the
being at the
Bears'
football game,
woes on what they're going to do with Justin Fields. If you want a bitch, go on Chicago Meathead Radio and
yeah,
complain about that because
like
there's
if
plenty
you
of that going on.
if the TV camera is cutting Taylor Swift 6 or 7 times in the press, in the luxury suite during the game is really enough that it affects you on a personal level, then you are either a person who needs to reevaluate your life a little bit, or you don't have any real problems and you're a very lucky man or woman,
Well, you've got a
but
kid square.
probably man.
You could be the cameraman who that's your job. There's one camera you guarantee you that's on her the whole game.
Well,
Then they
listen,
get a moment to switch to her and then they show it.
there's worse gigs than that too, Mike. Okay.
That's true.
All right. Now we are over an hour. Let's call it a week. But
All right.
thanks to everybody who watches. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share it on Facebook,
Yeah.
Hopefully you like what we're doing. Hopefully there's other Charlie Forsters out there that
Poor guy's got to drive and listen to us every month. He may not be driving tomorrow, Whitey. He may watch us tomorrow and then he'll quit listening.
well, you know, maybe he'll just wait till Tuesday. He'll put it off.
Yeah, that's true.
But, all right. Let's call it a week. We'll talk to you next week, Mike, and talk about
Sounds
that.
good.
All right, later.